claims, knowing that she did not remember a single thing that happened at that time, claims it was consensual and that he penetrated her with his finger and was too drunk, I believe, to truly be able to be erect and penetrate her with his penis instead. So the charges largely loomed around him putting his finger inside of her body and assaulting her in that way.
So they convicted him of...
They convicted him of sexual assault and essentially rape. It's rape by, the reason they're not calling
rape by
it
digits?
Yes, they're not calling it rape in California, I think, because of the fact that they normally require it to be more than any foreign object, but anything that's not a penis, they don't use that particular word. However, in every other state, it's the same thing. We're talking about rape. He was convicted by a jury. There was actually physical evidence that they found. So the sentencing took place later in time. The sentencing is not always immediate, and that is because the judge and the defense counsel and the prosecutor all have an interest in having what's called a victim impact statement. And they'd like to hear the victim say what she would like to happen in the case. What was the impact of all this happening on her? And what, if any, sentence did she recommend? Does she think jail time is appropriate or not? Because although it is the people against this person, against the defendant Brock Turner, they also want to say, how serious is this to you? On the flip side, the defense is able to offer letters that kind of like reference letters, if you will, from people that they know, love, and trust or have worked with that can say, look, this person is more than the crime that they have committed. So both those things happen. That's why you're hearing about this very eloquent and powerful letter written by the victim that was 12 pages in length that she read out loud to the court. None of that's confidential. It's all pretty much a matter of public record when that happens to the court. The court has a chance to weigh these things and decide whether or not the punishment that's usually arranged is appropriate for this person.
So this judge sentenced him before the letter?
Sentenced him after hearing the letter.
So after hearing this eloquent, because I read some of it and I was chill. I mean, it was very well put together. And also chilling, 6 months.
6 months.
When you heard the sentence, what did you think?
I had to literally go to my computer to figure out, oh, wait, was he only charged with a misdemeanor? Because a misdemeanor is a 6-month offense. I thought, I thought they had gotten him on felony counts. I didn't realize, because felonies are anything that's punishable by a year or more in prison. So I thought, he must have had a misdemeanor offense. I didn't realize it was a misdemeanor. Then when I went and saw that it was a felony conviction and more than one felony conviction, after a jury had found it, I realized what had happened. And what happened is the classic case of victim blaming. Now, victim blaming, people talk about it all the time in terms of, the victim can't really be considered a victim if she herself or he himself has put himself in a position to be victimized. And we blame women, we blame intoxication, we blame promiscuity, we blame lots of things on a reason to say that somebody deserved an action that was against them. And it masked itself in the form of victim blaming here because the judge, I believe, thought, you know what? Yes, this man is at fault. He is absolutely at fault, but he was trying to send a message to punish the victim. We talked about it in the past, Karen, that prison and incarceration has three different purposes. One is to punish for the actual conduct that you've committed. Number two, it's to deter other people, including the defendant or the convicted person, from committing any similar or any crime whatsoever. And three, it's to rehabilitate the person so that they can be, once again, walking amongst us as a contributing member of society. But what happened here was that the judge decided that he's going to, we're going to punish. And I think the best punishment for you is to get a slice of what prison life is like. But I think I need to send a message as well in terms of deterrence, not only for you personally, who he said, I don't believe you'll be a problem again. But his message of deterrence was to rape victims.
Anybody out there?
Which said, listen, if you're going to be drunk If you're going to drink yourself to the level that you are not able to consent, there is going to be a consequence. And the consequence is the person who's committed the act against you will not be treated as harshly. It's an absurd and disgusting balancing act that be performed, and it completely undermines the goal of a jury trial and the justice system, which is you are supposed to focus on the defendant. The trial is against the defendant. The punishment, the deterrence effect, all goes to the punishment of the defendant, not to the victim that was victimized in the first place.
So should this judge, we've had a lot of judge conversations of late, not here on the show because I really didn't even want to get into that with Trump U. Should this judge, because he had a Stanford connection, and a Stanford athletic connection at that, I believe he was a coach of a lacrosse team, should he have recused himself?
No.
Okay,
I don't think he should have.
Okay, so that's not enough to recuse himself, right?
No.
That he has a Stanford connection, and I actually agree with you. I just wanted to see where you stood on that.
Nope.
So, now, do you think he should step down?
Honestly, no, and here's why. There has been, I think, close now to almost 1 million petitions that have been petitioned to recall this particular judge, right? And
signatures on petitions, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's into this petition. Like, let me sign this petition, and I think the change is going to happen. Largely because I think what the Obama administration said, if you get a certain number of signatures, we'll take a look at it. And it's ranged anywhere from let's have Bieber, exiled from the United States to Harambe the gorilla cases, right? So we've got this particular petition, and people think, oh, this has a lot of weight because public opinion is saying I'd like this person to be removed. Truth of the matter is, the greatest way to recall a judge like himself who is elected is through an election. And the way that, and this actual judge
is running
won his primary on Tuesday.
Right, because he ran unopposed.
He ran unopposed. And this is after he handed down that sentence.
But nobody was running against him.
No one was running against him. But it's only a primary. And so there you have this attitude of, we can just do something immediately about it. But the reason I don't think he should be, and mind you also, only I believe the Santa Clara County residents who are registered voters can actually be the ones to recall him. So if they themselves in that community want to recall, then yes, he should be recalled. But the reason I think that this is, in some ways, I'm outraged by the sentence, but in some ways the outrage is a much larger issue and less about the judge and more about the idea of the sexual assaults that are just so rampant. This judge, he had in his discretion to be able to rule how he saw fit and to be able to say the sentence that he thought. Where I think he went wrong is the description of it would not serve him very well in the future. It would be too much of a punishment, but he still allowed a sex offense registry, which is really, frankly, one of the harshest punishments that even at the sentence you will receive. There is a large part of that.
What does that do to him?
For the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life, forever.
Forever and ever, he will have to register, which means, you put it very plainly, if he has children, he can't drop them off at school.
Wow.
He can't take them to the playground. He can't go to the games. He can't vote at a school if their voting takes place at a school.
Wow.
He can't go to a church where there is Sunday school classes. He can't be present at those things. Oftentimes, he also can't be around the elderly. He can't be around people who are medically vulnerable. Anybody who would be vulnerable to or susceptible to being a victim from a sexual predator, he cannot be around. Now, I'm not suggesting that is, that's enough of a punishment for him. But your question is, should the judge be recalled on this fact alone? And the reason I say no is because I have seen many instances, including when there has been black sexual offenders who also have gotten 6-month sentences and a little bit longer.
So this is not out of the pale, beyond the pale of what is normal. Okay,
no.
and that's fair.
If I could add one more thing, Karen, I'm sorry, and just to that point, because I know people would be surprised by that. This is a former rape prosecutor as well. The judge himself was a rape prosecutor, and I believe that the reason he also gave a smaller sentence, a much more lenient one, is because this did not involve a penis penetration. or something else. That's why I believe he thought that on the grand scheme of things of what he had seen in the past and the level of violence that he had prosecuted himself, he personally did not feel that this was on the greatest scale of an injustice and an offense. And as eloquent as her speech was, I think his experience with other cases made him a little less receptive to the cries.
Yeah, but if his name was Raheem and he wasn't on the swim team at Stanford, your alma mater, do you think he would have gotten 6 months?
No.
So if that's the case, then I still think that there's an issue that must be raised with this Judge Persky. And, while you think he won't step down, I think he probably will be forced out of that position.
But if by the Santa Clara County people, then that would be the way to do it. But just because the nation has an outcry over the petition, that's not the reason that judges step down.
All right.
Because
so then the people in California in that county need to show up for the general election, and I hope he's running against somebody. Is he running unopposed in the general as well? Need to go to Ballotpedia.
As of Tuesday, I think he's unopposed. Now, who knows? Now there can be people to run in, but I would be surprised if he was reelected. I can tell you that. But in terms of stepping down, based on a sentence, he won't.
Okay. 866-801-8255. Cousin Syl also read a story yesterday that at Stanford there was a rape every 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then there have been none since he's been captured.
Sure, there have. So, there's been no. I hear your report, but the idea that it hasn't been reported, and the reason.
Well, doesn't that say no reported rapes since this man has been captured?
It does suggest that he's a serial rapist.
No.
You think he's a serial rapist? No, I hear your point. There obviously has.